next we have Krysten Morganti, and she'll be presenting on antique spinning wheel rescue.
So I have a deep and obsessive love for antique spinning wheels, and especially unusual spinning wheels. I have about 30 wheels in my home. Most of them are running, most of them are antique or vintage, and most of them have been found in non-spinners' households. I really like finding a wheel that has not been brought up to its full potential. It's been used as decor or stuffed in an attic, and rescuing it and bringing it back into spinning condition. I find many of my wheels on eBay or Craigslist, but I've gotten a bit creative about other ways to find wheels. I started looking internationally, and one of my first adventures was Anna, who was in Germany. She was a pickup-only wheel in Hamburg. So I found a German speaker on Ravelry who posted on my behalf on a German spinning group on Ravelry, and within a few hours she found a volunteer who picked up this wheel from the eBay seller, put it in a box, and shipped it to me in the US. Dolly was found at a Craigslist home in rural Minnesota and brought to me on the Antique Spinning Wheel Network, which is a railroad network of enthusiasts who will hand carry a wheel from person to person across large distances. Dolly went through 10 households. It took her 8 months. She ended up in my house in the spring. The Holyoke wheel is really special. This is a really rare one. It popped up on an antique store website in Quebec, and I bought it over the telephone. And I waited a month and then drove up to pick it up in person. It's a patented cast iron wheel from the 1880s. So spinning wheel needs to have two basic features to make yarn. It needs to have something that provides twist, which is what makes fluff turn into yarn and hold together. And it needs some way of tensioning, which is tightening or loosening the drive band and controlling how much twist and how fast. In this wheel, we have a flyer assembly. The flyer is a super important part. It's the guts of the spinning wheel, and for an antique wheel, it's important to look for in an assessment because it's usually missing or broken or mismatched. You need to see intact flyer arms, and on the left side of the photo, you see an orifice on the end of the mandrel. That's the yarn path that brings the yarn from the spinner's hands to the wheel. A flyer assembly separates usually into three pieces: a flyer, a bobbin, and a whorl, but depending on the design of the wheel, you may actually have a complete flyer assembly that only has two pieces or is made of metal or other materials that you may not see or expect. And then there is the spinning wheel-shaped object, which is not actually a spinning wheel. It is a decor item made by a woodworker during the country crafts decor movement, and it doesn't actually have the mechanism needed to spin. The problem is a lot of eBay and Craigslist sellers don't know that what they have is not a working wheel. These are two working wheels. The one on the left is a 200-year-old American wheel, and the one on the right is an upright wheel. The flyer is above the drive wheel. That's a 100-year-old Danish wheel. You also see on Craigslist sometimes antique rate wheels, which look a little different. They're larger. They don't have a treadle because the drive wheel is turned by hand. And they don't have a flyer assembly. The twist is provided by a spindle. You do see a tensioning post at the bottom there, but you see these a lot, especially in New England. And then you've also got wheels that look totally different from those three examples. These are three from my own collection that are complete, authentic wheels, but they don't look anything like the three that we just saw. Because wheels come in such a variety of shapes and sizes, you start to learn how to look for clues when you're assessing from photographs on eBay or Craigslist, clues that a wheel has a good working history. So on the flyer, for example, you would look for abrasions that are caused by the fiber being dragged across the wood. You might look for oil stains on the uprights. You might see evidence of a tension screw, and if you're really lucky, you might even see wear on the treadle, which is a thinness in the wood that is caused by the ball of a spinner's foot pressing into the wood repeatedly and making that a thin spot. So you get an antique wheel, you bring it home, and you disassemble it as far as you can. Sometimes parts are glued into place, which is really unfortunate, but sometimes they're also pegged into place, and that's supposed to be like that, but unfortunately really hard to take apart. I like to take wheels apart as far as I can, keep track of the pegs and where they came from, and to get ready to clean it. The flyer requires some special care because it is really fragile. Instead of grabbing onto the flyer arms and cranking them, put a screwdriver or a chopstick into the orifice and use that for leverage. The whorl may be threaded backwards from what you're used to. So instead of lefty-loosey, righty-tighty, it may be the other way around. Use oil and patience and be very gentle. And then I like to clean my wheels with baby wipes. Some people use a really damp cloth and Murphy's oil soap, but it's got to be really damp because you don't want to raise the grain on the wood. And then nurturing the wood, which has possibly been neglected for decades and decades. My son really likes helping me with this process. We use lemon oil, we use boiled linseed oil or Howard's Feed and Wax, which is a commercial preparation. Here, he's 4, and he loves doing this part of the job with me. He's helping me restore his great-great-grandmother's spinning wheel from Nova Scotia. You may find that certain expendable parts of a wheel, like the leather parts, need to be replaced. You take the old one out, use it as a template. People have used old belts, they've used old handbags, they've used leather scraps, as long as the leather is a comparable thickness and stiffness. You just cut out a new part and put it back in where you found the old one, and you should be good to go. And then adjusting the wheel, you want the flyer whirl and the drive wheel to line up. And so shifting the uprights back and forth until you get that adjustment just right is going to give you the perfect alignment. You shim those uprights with fiber or index cards or toothpicks or whatever it takes to keep your sweet spot. And then you're ready to go. Antique wheels can take a lot of work to restore, but they are meant to be workhorses and they're meant to last. It's a really gratifying process and they're worth the effort. I have a handout with resources in case you are interested in starting a rescue operation of your own. Thank you.
Thank you, Krysten.